1 foot of rock holds 45 million years of Earth's history. Everything humans have ever built fits inside the width of a single human hair. So what would be left of us after 50 million years? And what if someone already answered that question? In 2018, 2 researchers, one from NASA, one from the University of Rochester, opened a case file nobody asked for. They wanted to know what would happen to a civilization like ours after 50 million years underground. Buildings gone, metal gone, plastic gone. What survives is one thing, a chemical scar in the rock that shows up on every continent. Then they looked at the geological record, and they found one. 56 million years old. It looked like someone had burned massive amounts of organic material. Fast. More carbon than every identified natural source can account for. 30 years of research. No confirmed origin. Was it volcanic? Was it a gap that closes with more data? Or was something here before us? This is the Silurian hypothesis, and the evidence starts in the rock. 56 million years ago, between 3 and 7 trillion tons of carbon hit the atmosphere in a few thousand years. Temperatures jumped 5 to 8 degrees. 1/3 of deep sea life went extinct. Ocean chemistry shifted so fast that shells dissolved on the sea floor. Crocodiles lived in the Arctic. Palm trees grew in Wyoming. The tropics hit temperatures so high that mammals shrank to half their normal size because their bodies couldn't shed heat fast enough. Seafloor sediments from that era are stained dark with the chemical residue of mass death. The planet spent 200,000 years recovering. Thousands of papers confirm it. Core samples from every ocean on Earth carry the trace. What nobody agrees on is where that carbon came from. Carbon works like blood type at a crime scene. Living things leave one kind. Volcanoes leave another. The carbon from this event matches the living kind. The kind you get when you burn coal, oil, wood, anything that was once alive. 30 years of measurements confirm that. The first team on the case pointed to massive volcanic eruptions in the North Atlantic that ripped through the underground layers of ancient dead material. The eruptions cooked it and released it as carbon and methane. That activity is confirmed. The timing lines up. The second team, the skeptics, say that is the end of the story. Gaps in the data close when you collect more samples. 30 years is not that long in a field where a single deep ocean drill core costs millions of dollars. Give it time. The math will work out. But when you add up everything the volcanoes could have released, plus frozen methane deposits that thawed on the ocean floor, you still come up short. The total in the rock is more than the known sources can produce. And that gap has been sitting in the published research for 30 years without closing. Gavin Schmidt at NASA and Adam Frank at the University of Rochester didn't set out to explain this event. They asked a bigger question. If a civilization like ours existed on Earth before humans, could we tell? They ran the numbers on what survives geological time. Concrete gone in thousands of years, steel in tens of thousands, plastic in hundreds of thousands. After 50 million years, every physical object is gone. What remains is chemistry, a thin line in ancient rock. Their conclusion: a civilization like ours would not show up as a civilization. It would show up as an unexplained chemical event with a gap in the data. Consider the timeline. Earth has been habitable for complex life for over 500 million years. Modern humans have existed for 300,000. Our industrial civilization has been running for about 250 years. That's 1/20,000th of 1% of the window where complex life has existed on this planet. If another species figured out fire, tools, and industry at any point in that 500 million year window, and lasted only as long as we have so far, the geological record would have had hundreds of millions of years to grind the evidence to dust. The skeptics pushed back. If a pre-human civilization existed, where are the industrial chemicals? Where are the compounds that industrial chemistry produces, but nature does not? When scientists analyzed sediments from 56 million years ago, they found mercury with a volcanic signature. They found no artificial compounds, nothing manufactured. Schmidt and Frank had an answer. Sediments that old cannot preserve those compounds. The chemical bonds break down over millions of years. The absence of artificial markers in rock that old does not prove they were never there. It proves the rock cannot hold them for that long. This is where the debate gets stuck. It has been stuck since the paper was published in 2018. 7 years, no follow-up studies, no funded research programs. The question sits in a peer-reviewed journal, cited occasionally, pursued by nobody. If you want to argue about whether that gap means anything, drop your take in the comments. But first, there is a piece of evidence that changes the math. There is a site in Gabon, Central Africa, called Oklo. 2 billion years ago, a natural concentration of uranium in the rock reached critical mass and sustained a nuclear chain reaction for hundreds of thousands of years. A reactor, running on its own, with no one there to build it. Groundwater seeped in, moderated the reaction, boiled off, and the cycle repeated for hundreds of thousands of years. The heat signatures, the fission products, the specific ratios left behind when atoms split were still measurable in the rock when geologists found the site in 1972, 2 billion years later. That pattern cannot be produced by any other natural process. The fingerprint survived because nuclear reactions leave a mark that geological time cannot erase. Think about what that means against the odds. Dinosaurs walked this planet for 165 million years. We have found a few thousand fossils. The fossil record captures less than 1% of the species that ever lived. A civilization that lasted 10,000 years and then collapsed would not leave a single bone. It might, however, leave a nuclear trace. This is what changes the math on the Silurian hypothesis. If a pre-human civilization used nuclear power, even at a fraction of the scale we use today, the products would survive. There is an element called plutonium-244 that does not occur in nature except as a product of nuclear reactions. No volcano produces it. No asteroid impact produces it. No methane release produces it. If you find it in a 56 million-year-old sediment layer, there is exactly one thing that produces it. Schmidt and Frank flagged this in their paper. They listed it as one of the signatures that could survive tens of millions of years. No one has run that test. The equipment exists. Mass spectrometers. Sensitive enough to detect trace plutonium isotopes have been operating in university labs for decades. The sediment cores from that era have already been drilled, cataloged, and stored in climate research archives around the world. A team with the right instruments and access to those cores could run the analysis in months. The cost would be a rounding error next to a single Mars rover mission. The question was published in a peer-reviewed journal by a NASA climate scientist and a university astrophysicist. It made headlines for a week. Then the field moved on. The response has been 7 years of silence. The rock is still there, sitting in ocean cores stored in university labs around the world. The test could be run tomorrow. It has not been. We have spent billions sending rovers to Mars to drill into dead rock, looking for chemical traces of microbial life that may have existed 3 billion years ago. We have not funded a single study to check our own geological record for the kind of nuclear fingerprint that Oklo proves can survive 2 billion years. If that priority gap does not bother you, it should. Run the thought experiment forward. Everything humanity has built, every city, every highway, every landfill, every reactor. Leave it alone for 50 million years. Come back and look. Give it 10,000 years, and the concrete is powder. Give it 100,000, and the steel is rust. Give it 1,000,000, and the last plastic molecule has broken apart. Give it 50 million, and a geologist drills through what is left and calls it a minor anomaly in a routine core sample. Your house, your car, the phone in your hand, the building you are sitting in, all of it gone, absorbed into new stone. The Great Wall of China is a faint trace metal concentration in a band of compressed earth thinner than a coin. What survives is the carbon. 150 years of industrial output has added roughly 500 billion tons of carbon to the atmosphere with that same living thing fingerprint. That carbon, recorded in ocean sediment, produces the kind of trace that lasts. Same type of signal as the event from 56 million years ago. Same kind of gap waiting to be explained. A future geologist drilling into that layer 50 million years from now would study it the same way we study the older event. They would name it, they would date it, and they would leave a gap in the explanation. And there is a darker thought. If a previous civilization collapsed and the dead organic material got buried and compressed over millions of years, it became coal and oil. Their collapse might have powered our rise. We could be burning the remains of the last civilization that ran this experiment. Somewhere in the rock beneath our feet, their entire history is a thin, dark line that we drilled through, refined, and pumped into our gas tanks without a second thought. The coal deposits we mine today formed 300 million years ago from dead plant matter compressed under sediment. If a civilization existed anywhere in that window and collapsed, the organic remains of their cities, their crops, their dead, would have entered the same compression cycle. There is no chemical test that distinguishes ancient industrial waste from ancient swamp matter once it has been cooked underground for 50 million years. If that does not make you want to send this to someone, nothing will. Now put 3 teams on the stand with everything you have heard. Team 1 says the volcanic eruptions and methane explain the event. The gap will close with more data. Give it time. They have been studying this for 3 decades. They know the rock. They have mapped the eruption sequences. Their position is that nature produced this event, and the remaining unknowns are measurement problems, not mysteries. Team 2, the skeptics, say no artificial traces have been found in the sediment. No industrial chemicals, no nuclear fingerprint, nothing that nature could not produce on its own. In a record this well studied, silence means the answer is natural. And the Silurian hypothesis, while clever, is a thought experiment, not evidence. Team 3 says the detection model proves those traces cannot survive at this timescale. The silence is not evidence of absence. It is predicted by the physics. Plastics degrade. Synthetic chemicals break apart. The only test that could settle it, the nuclear fingerprint, is sitting unfunded and unrun. You cannot call the record clean when the one definitive test has not been performed. Same evidence. 3 verdicts. Which one you believe depends on whether you trust the record's silence or the model that says the record was never built to speak. We do not know what produced the full volume of carbon in that 56 million-year-old rock layer. And thanks to the physics of geological time, we may never know. That is not the same as saying nothing was here. Treating those 2 statements as the same thing is not science. It is a guess dressed up as an answer. The Silurian hypothesis is not a claim that something existed before us. It is a proof that the question cannot be closed. Not here, and not anywhere else. Every rocky planet with active geology runs the same clock. Every mountain range grinds the surface down. Every tectonic plate swallows the ocean floor. Whatever lived on those planets, if anything lived on those planets, went through the same eraser. Every conclusion about whether intelligent life exists out there was built on the assumption that if something existed, we would find the trace. Schmidt and Frank proved that assumption is wrong. The universe could be full of civilizations that rose, collapsed, and left nothing but a thin chemical line in the rock that the next species studied, named, and filed under natural causes. One test could shift the verdict. If someone drilled into sediments from that 56 million-year-old event and found plutonium-244, the case would break open overnight. If they drilled and found nothing, the skeptics would have their strongest evidence yet. Either result would be worth more than 30 years of footnotes. The test exists. The rock exists. The funding does not. If that distinction hit the way it should, hit the like button. Not because I asked, because you picked a side and you want the next person to see the evidence. We're leaving a layer right now. The carbon is accumulating. The fingerprint is being locked into ocean sediment at this moment. 50 million years from now, a geologist on this planet, whoever they are, whatever species they belong to, will drill into our layer and find the same kind of signal. Fast carbon spike, biological source, concentrated trace metals where our cities stood. And they'll ask the same question we're asking now. Whatever we do from here determines what that layer looks like to the next reader. Whether it has the profile of a species that recognized the pattern and changed course, or a species that recognized the pattern and kept going. The event from 56 million years ago, whoever or whatever produced it, has the second profile. The carbon peaked, the temperature maxed out, the extinctions happened, and the planet spent 200,000 years finding a new balance. Whatever left that spike didn't make it to the other side. We're the first civilization in Earth's history that can read the record of what came before us and understand what it means for what we're doing now. The question is whether reading it is enough, because that event doesn't care who caused it. The rock doesn't record intentions. It records chemistry. And our chemistry, right now, in this decade, matches. A force so extreme it rewrites the chemistry of an entire planet. If what you watch today is what happens when the evidence disappears, the next case is what happens when the evidence is still being written. If this channel does not show up in your feed, you know what to do. And if you have made it this far, I need to know. Volcanic, skeptic, or industrial? Put your choice in the comments. The best answers will get pinned.